While American parents are frantically interviewing nannies at 8 weeks postpartum, desperately trying to figure out how to balance a newborn with their demanding careers. Somewhere in Sweden, a new father is settling into month 3 of his parental leave. He's not apologizing for being away from work. He's not worried about falling behind. He's doing exactly what his society expects him to do. Be present for the most critical period of his child's development. This isn't a luxury. This isn't even viewed as particularly progressive anymore. In Nordic countries, this is simply how you raise emotionally healthy humans. But here's what's fascinating, and what challenges everything we've been told about productivity and success. The countries with the most generous parental leave policies also happen to have the strongest economies, the happiest citizens, and remarkably, the most emotionally resilient children. What if everything we believe about early childhood and parental presence is backwards? What if the race to return to normal life is actually undermining the very foundation we're trying to build for our families? There's a quiet revolution happening in the world's happiest countries, and it starts with a radically different understanding of what those first months of life are actually for. The neuroscience behind Nordic wisdom here is what Nordic countries understand that others miss. The first year of a child's life isn't just about keeping them fed and safe. It's about literally wiring their brain for emotional regulation, trust, and resilience. And this process requires something that can't be outsourced: the consistent, attuned presence of their primary caregivers. When neuroscientists study infant brain development, they discover something remarkable. During those early months, every interaction shapes neural pathways that will influence how that child handles stress, forms relationships, and navigates emotions for the rest of their life. Think of it like this: the infant brain is like wet concrete, and every moment of connection or disconnection leaves a permanent impression. Harvard's Center on the Developing Child calls this serve and return. The baby serves up a cry, a smile, a reach. The parent returns with comfort, attention, engagement. Back and forth thousands of times. But here's the crucial part. This neurological dance requires biological attunement. Parents naturally sync with their child's rhythms in ways that even the most skilled caregiver cannot replicate. Research shows that when parents are consistently present during this critical period, their children develop better cortisol regulation. Essentially, they're wired to handle stress more effectively. Their mirror neurons, which govern empathy and social connection, develop more robustly. They learn what psychologists call earned security, the deep cellular knowing that their needs matter and will be met. Contrast this with fragmented care from multiple caregivers, even loving ones. The infant brain, designed for attachment, struggles to form these crucial neural pathways when primary relationships are inconsistent. It's not about the quality of care. It's about the irreplaceable nature of the parent-child bond during this neurologically sensitive period. Studies from Nordic countries, where parental presence is protected and prioritized, show remarkable long-term outcomes. Children raised with extended parental leave demonstrate higher emotional intelligence, better social skills, and lower rates of anxiety and depression throughout their lives. The investment in presence during infancy pays dividends for decades. This isn't sentimentality. It's neuroscience. The Nordic approach treats those early months as what they actually are: the most critical period for emotional development in the human lifespan. But how did entire societies come to embrace something that seems so radical to American sensibilities? The Nordic approach didn't happen overnight. It evolved from a fundamental shift in how they define productivity and success. Unlike in America, where returning to work quickly is often seen as a badge of honor, Nordic countries began asking a different question. What if our most important economic asset isn't our individual productivity, but our collective emotional intelligence and social cohesion? Sweden didn't just offer generous parental leave. They revolutionized their entire understanding of what makes a society thrive. They discovered something counterintuitive. The countries with the longest parental leave policies also have the highest productivity rates. How is this possible? When parents are present during their children's critical early development, those children grow into adults who are more emotionally regulated, more empathetic, and more socially skilled. They require less mental health care, have lower crime rates, and contribute more effectively to their communities. The initial cost of parental leave becomes an investment in human capital that pays returns for generations. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of the Nordic approach is how they redefined parental roles. While American society still often treats fathers as secondary caregivers, Nordic countries insist that fathers take substantial leave time. In Sweden, fathers who don't take their allocated leave actually forfeit it. It can't be transferred to mothers. This isn't just about gender equality. It's about recognizing that secure attachment requires multiple strong parental bonds. Nordic workplaces adapted accordingly. Rather than viewing parental leave as an inconvenience, employers began to see it as producing more emotionally intelligent, stable, and ultimately valuable employees. Companies that initially worried about productivity losses found that parents who returned from extended leave were more focused, more committed, and brought enhanced social skills to their work environment. The myth that this approach creates soft children or helicopter parents is contradicted by outcomes. Nordic children consistently score highest on measures of independence, self-confidence, and emotional resilience. When children's attachment needs are met early and consistently, they actually develop greater autonomy and self-regulation. So what happens when we outsource the most foundational period of our children's lives? We don't just miss precious moments, we miss something far more critical: the formation of our own parenting instincts and our child's secure emotional base. Here's what American culture rarely acknowledges. Those challenging early months aren't just about childcare. They're about parent development. When mothers and fathers navigate the intensity of caring for an infant, the sleepless nights, the constant attunement, the trial and error of learning their child's unique needs, their own brains are literally rewiring. Neuroscience shows that parents who are present during this period develop enhanced neural pathways for empathy, patience, and intuitive understanding of their child. They learn to read subtle cues, understand their child's individual rhythms, and build confidence in their parenting abilities. This isn't just bonding, it's the formation of what psychologists call parental expertise. When parents return to work at 6 or 8 weeks, they miss this critical developmental window for themselves. They may forever feel slightly out of sync with their child, always wondering if someone else knows their baby better than they do. Many parents report feeling like strangers to their own children, particularly as those children grow and face emotional challenges. The long-term relational costs are significant. Children who don't establish secure attachment during their first year often struggle to connect emotionally with their parents throughout childhood and adolescence. The very parents who worked hard to provide for them become the people they're least likely to turn to during difficult times. Consider the difference between care and presence. A skilled nanny can meet every physical need, maintain schedules, and provide loving attention. But she cannot provide what the infant brain is specifically designed to seek: the unique emotional signature of their primary attachment figure. Children form what researchers call emotional fingerprints of their caregivers, learning to read micro-expressions, vocal tones, and energy patterns that become their template for safety and connection. When this critical period is fragmented among multiple caregivers, children often develop what psychologists term anxious vigilance, constantly scanning their environment for emotional cues because their primary relationships feel unpredictable. This early anxiety can manifest as behavioral challenges, sleep difficulties, and social struggles that persist long after the childcare arrangements change. Perhaps most heartbreaking is what happens to family cohesion. Nordic research shows that families where parents were present during the first year maintain stronger emotional bonds throughout the child's development. These children are more likely to confide in their parents during adolescence, seek their guidance during major life decisions, and maintain close relationships as adults. The Western model of outsourced early parenting doesn't just affect one generation. It creates cycles of emotional distance that can persist across families for Decades. But what if you don't live in Sweden? What if your company offers minimal parental leave and your economic reality demands dual incomes? The beauty of Nordic principles is that they're not just about policy. They're about priorities and presence that can be adapted within almost any constraints. Even without Nordic policies, you can apply Nordic principles to create meaningful presence during your child's critical first year. It starts with reframing how you think about this period, not as an interruption to your real life, but as the most important work you'll ever do. Consider the Nordic hour, a daily practice of completely undivided attention. Nordic parents don't just spend time with their children. They practice what researchers call serve and return interactions with full presence. This means phones away, work thoughts set aside, and complete attunement to your child's cues and needs. Even 30 minutes of this quality presence can strengthen attachment bonds in powerful ways. For working parents, attention optimization becomes crucial. Instead of scattered, distracted time throughout the day, concentrate your presence into focused periods. Research shows that 20 minutes of full attention creates stronger attachment than hours of divided attention. When you're with your child, be completely with your child. When choosing childcare, apply Nordic principles by prioritizing consistency and attachment awareness. Rather than optimizing for convenience or even credentials, seek caregivers who understand the importance of your primary bond and actively support it. The best childcare providers see themselves as supporting attachment, not replacing it. Build community support systems that honor the parent-child bond. Nordic societies surround new families with collective support. Extended family, neighbors, and friends who understand that supporting parents means supporting children. Create your own village of people who can provide practical help while respecting your role as the primary emotional anchor for your child. Most importantly, adopt the Nordic long-term perspective. View the first year not as time lost from your career, but as the foundation for everything that follows. Nordic parents understand that investing presence during this brief period creates children who are more independent, more confident, and ultimately require less intensive parenting as they grow. This might mean making temporary sacrifices. Perhaps one parent works part-time, or you delay certain career moves, or you live more simply for a year. But Nordic wisdom suggests these aren't really sacrifices. They're strategic investments in your family's emotional capital. The choice to prioritize presence during your child's first year isn't just a personal parenting decision, it's a contribution to the emotional intelligence and resilience of entire communities. Here's what Nordic societies have discovered. When individual families invest in secure attachment, everyone benefits. Children who experience consistent parental presence during their first year grow into adults with remarkable social skills. They're more empathetic, better at conflict resolution, and more likely to form stable relationships. They contribute to workplaces with higher emotional intelligence and create communities with greater social trust. Nordic countries have lower rates of mental health issues, crime, and social dysfunction not because of genetics or climate, but because of how they approach those critical early relationships. When children learn emotional regulation from birth, when they develop secure internal working models of relationships, when they experience consistent attunement, they carry these capacities into every interaction for the rest of their lives. The generational impact is profound. Children who experienced secure attachment become parents who naturally provide secure attachment. They don't need to consciously learn emotional availability. It's wired into their nervous systems from infancy. This creates an upward spiral of emotional health that strengthens with each generation. Imagine if Western societies truly embraced this Nordic understanding. Imagine if we structured our work lives, our social policies, and our cultural values around the recognition that those first months of life shape everything that follows. What would change if we valued emotional development as much as we value economic productivity? The transformation wouldn't just affect families. It would influence how we design communities, how we approach mental health care, how we structure education, and how we handle social challenges. Nordic societies aren't just happier because of their policies. They're happier because decades of prioritizing early attachment have created cultures of people who are fundamentally more emotionally skilled. Your choice to prioritize presence during your child's first year sends ripples far beyond your family. It models a different set of values for your community. It demonstrates that emotional health is worth protecting. It contributes to a culture that recognizes the profound importance of those early relationships. The ultimate Nordic lesson isn't about parental leave policies. It's about understanding that true productivity includes emotional well-being, that real success includes relational health, and that the most important work any of us will ever do happens in the quiet moments of connection with the people we love most. Every moment of presence you choose during your child's first year is both deeply personal and radically political. It's a vote for the kind of society you want to live in and the kind of future you want to create. The Nordic countries have shown us what's possible when we get this right. The question is, what will you choose? The path forward isn't about copying Nordic policies wholesale, it's about embracing Nordic wisdom. Understanding that those early months matter more than we've been told. Recognizing that presence is the most important gift we can give our children. And believing that the time we spend building secure attachment isn't time away from our real lives. It's the foundation that makes everything else possible. The Nordic secret isn't complicated. It's simply this. The most important work any society can do is to ensure that its youngest members experience consistent, attuned love from their earliest days. Everything else, happiness, productivity, social cohesion, emotional intelligence, flows from that single, revolutionary commitment.